All right, so go ahead and come on your backs. I'm gonna go ahead and mute. All right. So go ahead and either have your feet flat or your legs out, whatever feels most comfortable to you. And we're gonna just stay there for a little bit of time, doing some observation, some breathing. So taking a moment, get settled. And what I'd like for you to begin to observe today is, what is it feeling like in your lower back and your back ribs? So if our rib cage has even a slight flare to it, and we'll explore this when we're sitting and standing, it'll tend to tighten up our lower back, and it will tend to have us lose our connection to our core. And for many of us, we have this slight flare to our rib cage. Some of us, it's kind of the opposite. It might be like a dropping of the ribs, and then we're rounding our back, rounding our shoulders. So it might be opposite for you. So that's also an adjustment that we'll need to make. So noticing if you have like a tightness in your lower back, if your rib cage feels like it's resting on the ground or kind of lifting a little bit away from the ground, and you don't have to make any particular adjustments yet. I just wanted you to observe. And then we're going to place our hands right on the front ribs. And now we'll start to allow those ribs to drop a bit. So with your hands on your rib cage, breathing into this area, and just let the rib cage get a little heavier toward the ground. And now just go ahead and stay there for a little bit. I'm going to share some readings with you before we get started. So this area that we're working on today, the area of the abdomen, the ribs, the core, the transverse abdominis area, all this is related to our third chakra. And sometimes this is referred to as our power center. It's about connecting to our innate power. And when I was reading this book called Power versus Force by David Hawkins, it really brought to mind, how do we stay empowered in a world that disempowers us? In a world that kind of, wants us to feel powerless? And what is the difference between power and force? So just a little reading here, and I'll share some more at the end as well. So power is always associated with that which supports the significance of life itself. It appeals to that in human nature which we call noble, in contrast to force, which appeals to that which we call crass. Power appeals to that which uplifts us, dignifies, ennobles, where force must always be justified. Power requires no justification. Force is associated with the partial, power with the whole. And if we analyze the nature of force, it becomes readily apparent why it must always succumb to power. This is in accordance with one of the basic laws of physics, because force automatically creates counter force. Its effect is limited by definition. Force is intrinsically incomplete and therefore has to be constantly fed energy. Power is total and complete in and of itself and requires nothing from outside of itself. It makes no demands, it has no needs. Because force is an insatiable appetite, it constantly consumes. Power, in contrast, energizes, gives forth, supplies, and supports. Power gives life and energy, force takes these away. So in our practice today, kind of thinking about this idea of staying within our power rather than noticing when we get into force. And when we get into force, it starts to become a little bit more from ego versus that intrinsic sense of power. So ego is more grasping and like looking outside of ourselves to feel good about ourselves. Power knows it's complete in and of itself. All right, let's go ahead and get started with our core practice now. So we're going to bend the knees if your feet are not bent or not flat. And bring your arms into the robot position that we usually do for bridge pose with the palms facing each other. Now, as you are here, notice what that curve in your lower back is. If it's really pronounced, you might have a little bit of that rib cage flare. So we're going to try and correct that. Take an inhale, and as you exhale, we're going to press the back body into the ground, especially your rib cage. Press your ribs, press your shoulders, and notice how your core engages. And then relax and do that 2 more cycles. And get that imprint of what it feels like to connect to your core. 1 more time. This is a little easier to find when we have the feedback of the floor behind us. It becomes a little harder when we are sitting or a tabletop or standing up. All right, from here, we're going to bring our knees over our hips. And sometimes as we do that, our rib cage might lift up, our lower back might arch a lot. See if you can press those back ribs back down into the ground until you feel that connection to your core, to your power. Now from here, start to straighten your legs in front of you, any amount, and they can be on an angle, they don't have to go low. But notice if your ribs pop up and keep those back ribs planted. And then from here, squeeze the knees in towards your chest. And as the knees come in towards your chest, press your back ribs down. Okay, very slowly, extend those legs out in front of you. Go as low as you can without overarching your lower back, without losing your rib cage. And then pull the knees in and press your ribs into the ground as those knees come into your chest. 1 more like this. Legs extend towards straight. They don't have to go all the way. And then pull in. Press your back ribs. Okay, now we're going to try this with the arms overhead. Take your arms overhead, and as soon as your arms come overhead, your rib cage again might flare. This is a compensation pattern. When our shoulders are tight, our ribs might pop to help get our arms overhead. So your challenge is to keep those back ribs pressing into the ground. Arms press into the ground as well. Start to straighten your legs. And then squeeze them in and press the rib cage into the ground. 2 more like this with arms overhead. Whole time, we're keeping those back ribs pressed. The minute we lose the rib cage, all the work goes into our lower back. Keep those knees squeezing in. And now we're going to try and lift the shoulders, the arms, and the head. The knees are still squeezing in, your ribs are pressing into the ground. Start to straighten your legs. And then bring them in. Now if this is too much, go back to the floor. Each time you bring those knees in, press your back ribs. 1 more. Good, and release. Let it all go. Arms down, legs down. Take a breath or 2. All right, last thing here, take both arms and legs up toward the ceiling. Palms face in. Press your back ribs, feel that connection to your core. And now we're going to reach the arms and the legs slowly away from each other. Keeping those back ribs down. Good, and then bring them back up. And continue. Slowly let both arms, both legs move away. Keep your back body pressing down. Bring it back up. One more time. Now this time, hold it wherever you can. Hold it. Press your back ribs. Squeeze your legs together. Make your arms strong. Hold it. One more breath. Press those ribs. And release. Hug it in toward your chest. And we're going to roll to the side. Come on up into a seated posture. All right. So feel free if you want to sit up on pillow or blanket. Coming into a cross-leg position. And we're going to put our hands right on those front ribs again. First, we're going to do intentionally what I really don't want you to do today. We're going to flare our ribs. So let your rib cage pop forward. Like you really, like we're going to say hi with your chest. Hello. Press your chest forward, press your ribs forward, and just kind of feel that lower back and the mid back, like feel that tightness that you create. We're exaggerating a bit, but if we even have that tiny bit of a rib cage flare, our back is like a little bit tightening all day long. So now guide your ribs right over your pelvis until you feel like more of an even sensation in your back and you're not getting that tightness in your back. Okay, now like making a wall with your hands, press your hands into your ribs and press your back ribs back toward the wall behind you. See if you can feel your core muscles engage. Now the trick when you're sitting up or standing up, when we draw our ribs back, I'm gonna go this way for a moment. When we draw our ribs back, the tendency is to round your spine. We don't have the floor to press our ribs in anymore. So as we press our ribs back, we have to be careful that we're not rounding the spine. So ribs press back, sternum and crown of head stay lifting, and we feel that connection to our core. Okay, from here, interlace your hands overhead and bring the palms right toward the top of your head. Keep pressing your ribs back, stay connected to your core, and now we'll slowly press the arms up and try not to lose your core the whole time as those arms are pressing up. Because a lot of times, again, as the shoulders are tight, the rib cage will compensate. Good, lower the palms to the crown of the head. Do that 2 more times. Ribs are pressing back. We feel connection to our power and we reach up. 1 more time, lower, stay connected to your core and press up. Okay, now from here, release your palms, reach them up, take a twist to your right. Inhale, sit up as tall as you can. Exhale, turn. And now draw your rib cage back a little bit and then lift your sternum, lift the crown of your head. You'll feel a little bit more core engagement, I hope, when you do those actions. Hold it here, 1 more breath. Good, and then next inhale, release, reach the arms up. And twist the other way. Inhale, sit as tall as you can. Exhale, turn. And then a little bit of pressing those ribs back. And as the ribs press back, lift your sternum, lift the crown of your head. Hold it there, 1 more breath. And then release. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, release, arms down. All right, let's come into all fours, tabletop positioning. Feel free to pad your knees. All right, so for our focus for our cat-cows today, if we lose our core, we tend to really dip into our lower back. So we're going to try and maintain a little bit of core connection as we do the cat-cow. So in your tabletop position, let's pause there. Push through your palms. We're going to push the back ribs up without rounding your spine and lift the abdomen away from the floor. Now, keeping that bit of core engagement, take your inhale and arch your back. Exhale, round and push through your palms. Press that rib cage up, up, up. And now this time, inhale, come forward. Let your core go, let your belly go, and notice how you really overarch your lower back. Okay, that's what we don't want to do. Exhale, round. Press the ribs up, lift the abdomen. Now keep that abdomen a little bit lifted as you slowly come forward into your cow. Exhale into cat. Okay, so keep that going. Let's do about 3 more cycles. And with the core engaged, it also slows us down a bit, right? So sometimes we just go inhale, exhale, exhale. We're not really thinking about it. We're not being mindful about it. And we let that core go. And then we're just getting all of the mobility in our lower back where we don't necessarily need it. Most of us need more mobility in our upper back. And so if we control the lower spine by controlling the lower belly, we can get a little bit more mobility in the upper spine where most of us need it. After your 3rd cycle, let's go ahead and move back to a child's pose. All right, go ahead, take a breath or 2 there. We're going to work on our balancing tabletop next. I'm going to use that control of the abdomen and the rib cage to help us maintain this pose. Okay, go ahead, come back up into your tabletop, all fours. And before we come into balancing table, let's go ahead and press the ribs up, push through your palms, lift the abdomen. You might even feel like you're a tiny bit rounded, but if you reach your chest and head forward, that'll take some of the rounding out. Keep that core engagement as you step your right leg back, toes on the floor. Okay, keep pushing through your palms, keep lifting your abdomen, keep pressing your back ribs up. You should feel your core engaged, your power center, and then try to lift the leg without dipping into your lower back. So for a lot of us, the minute we take that leg up, we go whoops down into the lower back. Another compensation pattern for weakness in our hamstring and in our glute. Reach your opposite arm forward if you feel steady enough to do so. Good, and then push into the ground, push your rib cage up toward the ceiling without rounding your spine to maintain that connection to your power. Good, release. And let's try the other side. So first, reestablish your core connection. Then take the left leg back, pause. Maintain that sense of your core lifting, your rib cage lifting, then we'll take that leg up. And it might not go as far, right? So I take that leg up higher, my rib cage is gonna dip. My lower back is gonna dip. Opposite arm forward if you feel steady enough to do so. And then like a magnet, press your back ribs up, your back leg up, your arm, and release. All right, take it back, child's pose once again. And then let's go ahead and come up into our dog pose. So when you're ready, finding downward facing dog. Okay, take a moment, pedal it out, move around a little bit. Just get into your dog. All right, go ahead and come into stillness. We're gonna move forward into a plank pose. So from your dog, come forward into plank and hold. You can always drop your knees. So here's another pose where we tend to sag in our lower back. So push through your arms, press your rib cage up enough that you feel like your core is engaged, but then reach your sternum forward. So we don't want the rounding in the back. One more breath. And take it back, downward facing dog. Moving from your dog to your plank a few times. So inhale, plank. Exhale, dog. Try that a few times and see if you can stay connected to your core and not dip into your lower back. If you're dipping, you might want to put your knees on the ground. Good, one more time. Good, now hold your plank again. This time everyone drop knees. Keep pressing through your palms, keep your rib cage pressing up so your core is engaged. And then a couple slow push-ups, lower down without losing your core. And then push back up. So as far as you like, lower down, see if you can maintain that sense of connection to your power. One more cycle. And this time, let's lower all the way down. Reach back through your big toes. Inhale, cobra pose. Exhale, downward facing dog. Lift your hips up and back. All right, from here, look forward, step or lightly jump, top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale and fold. Inhale, circle all the way up. Exhale, draw your arms back down. Good, okay, so we looked at the rib cage positioning on our backs where we had a feedback with the wall of the ground beneath us, seated in tabletop, now standing, hands on your front ribs. So a lot of us have this anterior pelvic tilt, some of us have posterior. So if it's anterior, the minute we tip our pelvis, the rib cage compensates by popping forward, right? If we tuck our tailbone down, the rib cage will drop. Okay, so notice if you have either of those patterns. Hands in the front of the ribs, we're gonna guide those ribs back until you feel your connection to your core. Legs are strong, crown of the head, sternum are still lifting so we don't round the back when we press our ribs back. Okay, try to take your arms up. Can you take your arms up without losing that connection to your core? So rib cage is still pressing back. Keep that. Let's see if we can lift up, lift our heels and come into a balance. And then hold it here. Keep pressing your back ribs back, still connected to your core. One more breath. Good. As you exhale, heels down, fold forward over your legs. Inhale to a halfway lift. Step back, plank pose. Try not to dip. And lower all the way down. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Big inhale here. Exhale, step or jump, top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift, and as you halfway lift, still keep a little bit of core engagement there. Exhale, fold. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Good. Okay, stand in your mountain pose again. Hands on your ribs. Press your ribs back. Now we're going to add one more little visual to help us stay connected to our power today. So we're going to imagine the tailbone and the sternum have a string that connect them. So the tailbone kind of hooks a little forward, and then we've got our base of our sternum right here below our chest. Imagine there's a string between those 2 points, and you want to cinch them together without dropping your shoulders and your chest. So when you cinch them together, you feel that core turn on. So we're going to keep that. All right, so we'll use that in a few different poses. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold forward over your legs. Inhale, halfway lift. Take the vinyasa. You can also go right to dog. If you are ready for an up dog, go ahead and move through an up dog instead of cobra. We're going to meet in downward facing dog. Okay, hold your dog for a moment. We're going to inhale the right leg straight up behind you. Now, a lot of times when we take that leg up, the rib cage flares, and we overdo our lower back. So find that core connection and only lift that leg as high as you can without dipping into your lower back. Good. From here, step it all the way through to a lunge. Drop down onto your back knee. Inhale, circle your arms up. Okay. So imagine your hands on your ribs, but we'll keep the arms overhead. Guide those ribs back. Feel the core connection. Pause here. If you feel like you need to, you can go ahead and lower your hands to your heart or your hips. We're going to lift the back knee and come up into a high lunge. So tuck your toes. Lift that back knee, we're in a high lunge. So anytime we're in a lunge or like a warrior one, our back leg hip flexor will often be the culprit that causes us to lose our core. So it's a little harder here. Guide your ribs back, hook your tailbone towards your sternum, find that little cinching action, and then keep the arms reaching up. Inhale here. We're going to keep a little bend in that back knee to help us get a little more connected to the core. And then we're going to hinge forward. Good. Inhale, come back up. Do that a few times. Exhale, hinge forward. Trying to keep a nice strong spine here, strong core. One more time. Good. Inhale up. And then exhale, hands down, step back, optional vinyasa, or right to your dog. All right, meeting in your dog, same thing, second side. Very carefully, slowly lift your left leg without dumping into the lower back. So use control. Lift it slowly, stay connected to your core. Hold it there, one more breath. And then we're gonna step it through to the lunge and drop the back knee down. Good, when you're ready, inhale, circle the arms up. All right, draw that rib cage back. Find that little hook of your tailbone towards your sternum. And then you can bring hands to hips or heart if that's helpful for you. Otherwise, tuck your toes and lift that back knee. And we're going to keep a little bend in that knee. Hook those tailbone toward your sternum. Draw your rib cage back. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, hinge forward. Okay, so two more like that. Inhale, come up. Exhale, forward. One more time. And last time, inhale up. Good, exhale, hands down, step it back. Take the vinyasa if you would like. Meeting in down dog. Back to side one, inhale, right leg up, use control. Step through, come into your lunge, drop down onto the back knee. Inhale, circle the arms up, rib cage back. Lift the back knee, find your lunge, hook your tailbone. Inhale, reach a little taller. Exhale, open it up to warrior two. So I'm just gonna come facing you guys. Warrior two. So warrior two is another pose that we tend to lose our core. We tend to have a pelvic tilt or a ribcage flare. I see this all the time with my in-person students. I can't see you guys as well. We're gonna bring our hands to our hips for a moment. Okay, so press down into your feet to get really grounded. And then notice the positioning of your pelvis. If our pelvis is tipping forward, we're gonna feel a little tightness in our lower back. So find your tailbone to sternum hook and draw your rib cage back. Feel that sense of connection to your core, then take the arms up. Another thing that might happen here is our shoulders round forward. So roll the shoulders back without losing your rib cage. Good. All right, inhale, straighten your front leg. Bring your hands to your hips. Weight should be right through your heels. You're drawing your rib cage back. You're feeling that sense of connection to your core. And we're going to very slowly start to tip into Trikonasana. So we're tipping toward the right leg. Pause when you get about halfway and hold it. Press your feet down, engage those legs, and then draw your rib cage back till you feel that connection to your core. Now go a little lower. Stay connected to your core. Reach your hand down. Hold your shin, ankle, or a block. And again, draw the rib cage back. Press through your heels. Top arm reaches up. All right, hold it here. See if you can feel that little hook of tailbone to sternum without rounding your spine. Last breath. Next inhale, rise back up, warrior two. Cartwheel your hands down, take your way back through a vinyasa, down dog, child's pose anytime you need one. Hold your dog once you get there. Take a few breaths. And as we continue through this practice, can you notice when you start to use force or when you come from that intrinsic sense of power within you? When we start to force ourselves, then we start to deplete ourselves, we start to come out of our power, and perhaps we could injure ourselves. So be really mindful. Inhale, left leg up. Good. Step through to the lunge. Drop the back knee down. Inhale, circle the arms up, ribs back. Good, tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, keep that back knee bent, rib cage back. And then open it up to our warrior two. Adjust your feet. Okay, hands on your hips. Notice what your pelvis is doing. Is your lower back tight? Can we find that tailbone to sternum hook and lift the front of the pelvis up? Press your ribs back without rounding your spine, and then arms up. Good, roll those shoulders back like you got a backpack on. Pause here, one more breath, look over your left fingers. Press through those heels. Next inhale, we're straightening the front leg, bringing the hands to the hips. Draw your rib cage back, find that little hook, and then go about halfway forward, tipping toward the left leg. And then hold it. Press down into your heels, pull the rib cage back. And then go ahead, slide that hand down, come a little farther into your Trikonasana. Notice if you lost your core. Press down through the feet again, little hooking action. And then top arm could reach up. All right, hold it here. Press down through the heels, reach wide through your arms. And then rising back up through your warrior two. Cartwheel your hands down, make your way back, downward facing dog. Vinyasa if you like. And a child's pose, if you like. So wherever you are, let's take about 2 more breaths. If you took a child's pose, we'll come back to down dog. We're going to make our way to the top of the mat. So take an inhale, exhale, step or lightly jump. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale and fold. Come into the halfway lift, hold it there. Try to have a nice long spine. Chest is parallel to the ground. And then hands on your thighs. Send your inner thighs back like you're trying to lengthen your pelvic floor toward the wall behind you. Then reach your sternum and your head forward. So you're trying to create a long line with your spine. Notice if you dip into your lower back. Let's lift the abdomen. Lift the back ribs a little tiny bit without rounding the spine. Feel connected to your core. Now try to take your arms out to the sides. Good. Did you lose your core? Did you dip into your lower back? Press those ribs up. Option now, take the arms forward. Now again, arms forward, we might dip into our lower back because of tightness in our shoulders. So we've got to control it, engage the core, lift those back ribs, and fold forward over your legs. Nice work. Next, inhale all the way up. Reach your arms overhead. Notice if your ribs flare as you reach those arms up. Might be a habit. And then release your arms down. Okay. Let's make sure we have blocks right in front of us, top of the mat. Okay. So we're going to try tree pose going into a warrior three. We'll come back to our flow in a bit. So first, stand in your mountain pose. Get those ribs back, find that hook, find the connection to your core. And we're going to stand on the right leg, bring the left heel up. You can start in kickstand or you can bring the foot right off the ground. Okay, but stay with that little hook and the abdomen back, the rib cage back without rounding your spine. And then hands to heart or overhead. And as you take those arms overhead, don't let the rib cage pop. Stay powerful. Good, one more breath here. Good, now from here, we're gonna bring that knee forward. Hold it there. Draw the rib cage back. Keep the rib cage back. I'm gonna switch orientation here because we're gonna now start to shift into warrior three. Bring your hands to your blocks and put those blocks right under your shoulders. Just like our balancing table, when this leg is up, we might dip into our lower back. So let's realign. Press through the palms, arms are strong. Press your rib cage up, get that core engaged without rounding. The sternum still reaches forward. Hook tailbone towards sternum in that little cinching line, and then opposite arm might reach forward. Now, as you hold it here, can you find that same connection to your core and not lose it without dipping into your lower back? Last breath. Good, release, hands down, fold forward over your legs. Inhale, when you're ready, reach those arms all the way up. Exhale, draw to your heart. Very good. Okay, let's try the other side. So now we're gonna stand in our mountain, get connected to your core, and then standing on the left leg, bring the right foot up for your tree. You can start with hands on hips if you like. Hooking tailbone to sternum, abdomen back. Foot can come up if you're steady. Maybe the arms come overhead. But notice how that core connection helps us balance. If I were to say, let your rib cage flare right here, we would probably all lose our balance because we lose our positioning. We lose our core. All right, bring that knee forward, pause. Abdomen back, feel the connection to your core and then shift into your warrior three. Bring your hands down to your blocks. All right, so holding it there, push through your palms, lift the back ribs, feel the core turn on, and then sternum and head forward to take the rounding out. If you're steady, opposite arm forward. Stay connected to your core. If you've lost it and you start to dip into your lower back, keep the hand down or realign. One more breath. Good, release, fold forward over your legs. Nice work. All right, keep those blocks at the top of the mat. Inhale, reach the arms all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Okay, so we're gonna go through our sequence again. We're gonna add on half moon pose, and then eventually we're gonna build the warrior three into the sequence as well. Lots of balance work today. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, fold over your legs. Inhale, halfway lift, step the right foot back. Back knee down. Inhale, circle up. Hold it here, lift the back knee. Keep that back knee bent, abdomen back. Open it up to your warrior two. That's it. Good, holding your warrior two, abdomen back. Straighten your front leg, go right into triangle. Keeping the weight in your heels, keeping the core connection. Good. All right, top hand on the hip. We're gonna bend into the front knee, grab a block so we can prepare for half moon. Before we come into half moon, we got this front knee bent. Let's get weight in the heels, draw the abdomen back, draw the top shoulder back. Good. From here, start to step that front block forward, step your back foot in, and we lift up into half moon. So I'm gonna reposition here so I stay in the frame. Okay, so while we're here, pushing into the ground, let's see if we can hook the tailbone to the sternum a bit. We tend to get really back bendy in this pose. So if I hook sternum and tailbone together, I get that core engagement. I can draw my rib cage back, lift the top leg a little higher, and then top arm floats up. If we maintain that connection to the core and pushing into the ground with the hand and the foot, we will feel more stable. We'll be connected to our power. Last breath. Good, slowly make your way back, warrior two. Good, cartwheel your hands down, downward dog, vinyasa if you would like. Good, meeting in dog. When you're ready, take a big inhale, exhale, step or jump, top of the mat. Inhale to your halfway lift, exhale and fold. Inhale, arms reach, exhale. All right, side two, inhale, arms reach, exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift, step the left foot back, drop down onto the back knee. Inhale, circle up, ribs back. All right, tuck the back toes, lift the back knee, high lunge with a bend in the back knee. Find your power center. And then open it up to your warrior two. Very good. So notice in your warrior two, your positioning of your pelvis, your rib cage. That's it, front knee, see if we can bend it a little deeper. Next inhale, straighten that leg, coming into your triangle pose. Good, notice if you got really back bendy in your triangle pose. Can you hook tailbone to sternum and draw your ribs back? Good. Okay, so preparing for our half moon, we're gonna bend a little bit into that front knee. Find a block if you haven't. All right, and then we're gonna start to reach forward with the block. Step the back foot in and lift up. So if we tend to be back bendy in our triangle, we're gonna be back bendy here. Find your hook. Tailbone, sternum, draw, cinch in towards each other without rounding your back. Top leg higher, engaging your hip. Push the ground away. Top arm could reach up if you're steady. Can you feel that connection to your core as you hold here? Last breath. Let's step it back, warrior two. Cartwheel your hands down, vinyasa or not. We're gonna meet in child's pose before we do the next part of our sequence. So take a couple breaths in your child's pose. Also known as teacher gets a drink pose. So I got my drink. So we're gonna build in a warrior three into our flow on this next round. And I find, you can take a couple more breaths here, I find in my warrior three, this rib cage thing has been the trick to help me hold a warrior three pose. Really hard pose, demanding on our backs, but we need to use our core to help support our backs. As you're ready, finding downward facing dog. Inhale, right leg up. Step through to your lunge, back knee down. Inhale, reach up, rib cage back. Tuck the toes, lift the back knee, bend the back knee. Holding your lunge, draw your rib cage back. Good, from here, hands to hips. Step your back foot in a little bit and ground the back heel. We're coming into warrior one. Okay, rib cage turns forward. Again, in warrior one, the back hip flexor is going to be a factor in the core. So we have to find that sternum to rib cage to tailbone hook, and then take the arms up. Good, inhale here, start to hinge forward. Keep that spine long, and then take your arms, float them back behind you. Lift your shoulder heads, and try not to stick your chin out here. So chin stays in, front sit bone hugs in, and we rise back up to our warrior one. Okay, next round, we're going to prepare to balance on the front leg. So from here, hinge forward. Swing those arms back. Come on to the ball of the back foot. Press in your front foot and start to push off the back foot. Come into your warrior three with the arms behind you. Find your core here. Maybe float your arms out to the side. Try not to lean into your standing hip. And then maybe the arms come forward, but can we press those back ribs up while you're holding your warrior three? Press the back ribs up. You can use your blocks if you need them. Place your hands down on your blocks. Good. Release and fold forward over your legs. Inhale, circle the arms all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Okay, let's try side two. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, fold. Step either to dog or take the vinyasa. When you're ready, inhale, left leg up. Step through, come into your lunge. Back knee down. Inhale, circle up. Good, rib cage back, lift the back knee, keep it bent. Keep that rib cage drawing back. Good, and then step that back foot in, ground the heel, coming into warrior one, adjust your feet. Find your hook, pull the rib cage back, take an inhale, exhale, hinge forward. Good, and then float those arms back behind you. Try not to stick your chin out. Inhale, come up. This time, preparing to shift forward. So come forward, arms back, spin onto the ball of your back foot. Really root into your front foot, front heel, and step it in. Try to lift that back leg, find your warrior three with the arms back. It's going to be a lot less demanding. If you want, from that place of power, the arms might fly out. But if that's not sustainable, keep them up behind you. Some of you might take arms forward, but can you lift your abdomen, lift your back ribs so you stay connected to the core? If you can't take arms forward, put them on the blocks and work on that rib cage, sternum to tailbone connection. Good, release, fold over your legs. Nice work, guys. And let's inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, Hands to your heart. Okay, take a moment. We're going to repeat our warrior three just one more time. So I really want you guys to try to experience this connection to the core while you're in this pose. But we're just going to do the pose now without the vinyasa stuff, so you can really concentrate, hone in. So keep your blocks nearby if you think you might need them, because that's empowering to make that choice, right? Sometimes we think we're going to force it, and then we've gone too far, we lose our core, and then we're not doing the pose from that place of empowerment. So stand facing your blocks, bring your hands onto your hips, find your core connection. Draw your rib cage back, find your hook. Lift your, let's lift the right knee up. And then take the rib cage back, find your little hook. From here, slowly start to hinge forward. Take that leg back behind you. Find your balance. You might let's put hands at heart. That might be a little more stable. And then press those back ribs up, reach your sternum forward. Then maybe the arms fly out. Maybe those arms shoot forward, but don't lose your core. Last breath, your choice of arms. And then hands down, leg down, fold over your legs. Inhale, circle up. Exhale to your heart. Good, last time. And we're gonna cool it down. So now let's do our warrior three one last time. Find your mountain pose. Find your core connection. And then let's go ahead, just bring hands to heart. And we'll bring that left knee up. Keep the rib cage drawing back. And then shift into your warrior three, hands at your heart. Once you're there, try to lift those ribs while the sternum reaches forward and don't stick the chin out. Option to take your arms to the side, fly them out. Still connected to that core, maybe the arms reach forward. Are you dipping into your lower back? Good, hands can be to blocks if you need to. And let's release, fold over the legs, nice work. Let's stay there for a few breaths. Maybe widen the feet. You can hold opposite elbows, big toes. Take a nice sway. Let it all go. Maybe switching the arms if you have opposite elbows. Last couple of breaths. All right. When you're ready, slowly coming out, rolling up or pressing up. Come back to your mountain pose and just stand in that power for a moment. Knowing that you made those choices today from that place of empowerment rather than forcing ourselves through these postures. Inhale, circle your arms up. Exhale, fold over your legs. Inhale, halfway lift. Step back to dog and find child's pose. So a few more breath cycles in your child's pose. Just let it all go for a moment. One more nice soft breath. And when you're ready, go ahead, come on up. We're going to come into a seated posture. And we'll take the legs out in front of us. You can sit up on a prop if that's helpful for you. All right, we're going to bend the right knee, bring that right foot close in, and hug your shin. Pull on the shin and lift your chest without popping your ribs forward. Lift the sternum, crown of the head. And then we'll hold on with left hand, reach the right arm up. Inhale, try to touch the ceiling, big circle, come into a twist. Now hold here and let the left leg slide forward and the right sit bone back a bit. So we keep the sacrum nice and open, lower back open. Inhale, sit up taller, exhale, turn. And now draw those ribs back without losing the length in your spine. You're pressing into an imaginary wall behind you. If you want, you can hook your left elbow past your right knee if that's available to you. Next inhale, lift up even taller and press those ribs back as you turn. One more breath. Next inhale, unwind it back to the center. Straighten that leg, take a pause, hold here. So it's a really challenging distinction to be able to draw the ribcage back when there's no floor underneath us without collapsing. So that's the challenge in this twist. Let's try the other side. Bend the other knee, hug the shin. Pull on the shin to lift your chest without popping the ribs. So if you pop the ribs, you'll get that tightness in your back. All right, and then holding on with right hand, inhale, left arm up. Inhale, reach high, exhale, twist, hand behind you. Okay, inhale, sit up taller, exhale, turn. And then as you hold here, draw those ribs back a little bit without collapsing your chest. Inhale, sit up even taller, exhale, turn, ribs back. One more breath. Inhale, unwind back to the center, both legs straight. Draw your sit bones apart and a little to the back. Feel free to bend your knees. We'll come into a forward fold. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, fold forward. And we're just going to stay here for a few breaths. Draw your hip creases back, reach the crown of the head forward. And we're not worrying about pressing the ribs or engaging the core. This is just now a releasing posture. Breathe into your belly. Feel like you're spreading through your back muscles. Letting your head be heavy. Let's do about 3 more breath cycles. And after your 3rd breath cycle, very, very slowly, starting to come up. Take your time, pause when you get to the top. Good, one more here, soles of the feet together, knees apart. We did a lot of the legs together stuff, so a little bit of external rotation. Inhale, sit up tall, option to fold over your legs. And then just letting the spine be soft, the head be heavy. Breathing in the belly. Let's take here 3 more breath cycles. After your 3rd breath cycle, very slowly starting to come back up. Pause at the top. Good, and then we'll draw the knees together. And let's go ahead and come on your back. If you want to have a pillow on your head, that would be fine. And let's just go ahead and give those knees a hug into the chest. And with those knees in toward the chest, let those back ribs drop. Holding it here, last 2 breaths. Let those ribs really melt into the ground. Okay, so we'll let the knees drop apart. Reach down, hold on to your ankles, your shins, wherever you can. Just come into like an air-bound angle. The feet will be a little separated. Let those knees drop. Let the back ribs drop, sacrum drop. Just breathing there for a moment. And then from here, coming into happy baby, we'll bring those feet up toward the ceiling. And you can stay like that, or you can hook your big toes or hold your feet. And then really just draw down into the back body. In our happy baby, we tend to round the spine. So can you really get those back ribs grounded, the shoulders down, press your back ribs down. And some of you might choose to do the legs wide version, take the legs apart. And then still pressing the back ribs into the ground here. So we're not rounding the back. Can you get the shoulders to snuggle down a little more? Sacrum, back ribs. One more breath. And then let's slowly release. Bring those knees back into the chest. Set your feet down flat onto the ground. Walk your feet as wide as the mat. Let your knees drop together to touch. And then just scoot your tailbone a little forward to lengthen the lower back. We do have a little curve in the back, but we don't want it to be too pronounced. And then hands on your front ribs. And just breathing here into your belly, into your rib cage. And as you exhale, gently guide your ribs a little closer to the ground. Two more breaths. Every exhale, gently guiding those ribs a little heavier into the ground. You don't have to overdo it now. We're not trying to too much activation in the core, but we want to neutralize here because as we come into Shavasana and we do have that body type with the flared rib cage, Shavasana is not always very comfortable when we take our legs out. So you can always do Shavasana with knees bent or with support under your knees. Go ahead, separate the knees. Slide one leg out long, give it a little wiggle, a little bounce. And then the other leg out long, little wiggle, little bounce. Then both legs, shake it out a bit. And now notice, you still have that curve in your lower back, but is it pronounced so much that it feels a little tender, a little achy? Can we press those ribs down again and maybe lengthen through the tailbone? And then let the arms come down, finding your Shavasana. If you haven't been able to find a comfortable place for your lower back, then do put something supportive under the knees. Or do Shavasana with your feet flat. So taking your time to get settled. And let your back body continue to drift down toward the ground, toward the earth. And now is the time to let the belly be soft. So there is a time for us to engage, to be strong, to be in that power. And there's also the time to surrender all of our efforts. And to come back to the place of softness, knowing that we have empowered ourselves. Sometimes when we feel disempowered, we feel maybe a little more victimized. We tend to hold that tension in the body 24/7. It's hard to find a place of softness when we feel disempowered. It's almost like we always want to be in that fight, flight kind of stance. And that emotional pattern in itself can often cause a little bit of tightness in the back and a little rib cage flare because we're kind of puffing ourselves up to fight whatever the threat is that we're sensing. And now just time to let it go and be soft. So I'll share a little bit more of the power versus force reading to you guys. Force always creates counterforce. Its effect is to polarize rather than to unify. Polarization always implies conflict, and its cost, therefore, is always high. Because force incites polarization, it inevitably produces a win-lose dichotomy. Because somebody always loses, enemies are often created. Constantly faced with enemies, force requires constant defense. And defensiveness is invariably costly, whether in the marketplace, politics, or international affairs. So we can use this idea both on and off our mats. Where are we forcing things in life? And where are we coming from our place of power? And then finally, power is that which makes you go strong, while force makes you go weak. If we're forcing something, we'll eventually deplete ourselves. Love, compassion, and forgiveness might be mistakenly seen as submissive. But in fact, these are very empowering. Compassion, forgiveness, love, very empowering. And on the other hand, revenge, judgmentalism, condemnation make us go weak. It is a simple clinical fact that in the long run, the weak cannot prevail against the strong. That which is weak falls of its own accord. Individuals of great power throughout human history have been those who have been totally aligned with power. Again and again, they have stated that this power they manifested was not of themselves or their own making. All attributed the source of power to something greater than themselves. So that source of power, something greater than ourselves, supplying that sense of internal empowerment. We can't find it from outside sources. We can't find it, in the people in our lives or the job that we do. It's coming from somewhere beyond, but also directly from within us. All right, so we're going to start to take our time to come back now. Start a little deeper breath, some small movements. Eventually letting those movements get a little bigger. And we'll make sure to pause on our side before coming up to sit. Take your time. We'll come to seated in your own time. As you arrive seated, go ahead, widen out the sit bones, find your central line that we talked about a couple weeks ago. And then see if you can have a sense of your ribs being directly over your pelvis. There's no flare to the ribs. There's just a slight feeling of engagement of the core without stiffening, without hardening, just enough that it's supporting our spine. Take a couple of breaths now. So the last challenge we have is, can we maintain this neutral spine, this connection to our power, but still be able to find a proper breath? So as the rib cage stacks directly over the pelvis, there's a natural lift in the core without tightening and stiffening, and then we should be able to still allow the diaphragm to rise and fall with our breath. And take about 3 more cycles, see if you can find that. It's very challenging. All right, let's go ahead now and bring hands together in front of the heart space. Take an inhale, and as you exhale, bowing to your heart. Thank you so much, everyone. Namaste.